time for the Ron and Brian podcast. Get ready to fill your ears with the latest news, politics, current events, and whatever else we feel like talking about this week. And now, your hosts, Ron and Brian.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 252 of the Ron and Brian podcast. It is Sunday night. It is 8 o'clock. Happy Easter or happy Passover to those of you that celebrate. To everyone else, happy Sunday. Brian, how goes it this evening, my friend?
Oh, Ron. It is Easter. It is a day that we all sit back and realize that sometimes it's okay to take a weekend off from your hectic day-to-day life. Sometimes it's okay to just crawl into your virtual cave, get some sleep, recharge the batteries, and come back on Sunday refreshed. This is Easter.
All right, well, let's get right into it. It's time for Drink of the Week.
Drink of the Week.
Na zdrowie!
Salud.
Drink of the Week.
Sláinte!
Who's?
Drink of the week. Drink of the week. Drink of the week.
Brian.
Drink of the week.
What are you drinking this week?
Oh, Ron, on a day like today calls for only the best of the best. And when I say the best of the best, I'm talking about Bud Light, people.
Nice.
That's right. It's when I'm thinking America, I'm thinking, values. I'm thinking just what represents me and the beer that I want to be. This is literally the size of my
It's
head.
a huge can.
It is a huge can. I might be drinking 2 of these today. So after dark, people, if you haven't signed up for our Patreon, jump over.
I
We'll
heard
give
you had a nice
instructions.
set of cans.
Ooh, Ron.
Hey.
Ron,
Yes.
Bud
Yes.
Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. That's what Bud Light and its simple, iconic 4-ingredient recipe has always stood for. With every moment and every beer, we strive to make easier life to enjoy. It's from our friends over at Anheuser-Busch. They invest time in making a meaningful impact. They are business partners, collaborators, and community leaders working to make a difference around the globe to better our future. They create jobs. They show up to lift up our neighbors when national disasters strike. They remain unwavering in their advocacy for responsible drinking. They put sustainable innovation at the center of their business to leave our world a cleaner place. And every time they brew, they use the highest quality ingredients grown in America by American farmers who have been their partners for generations, coming in at 4.2 ABV, 110 calories, 0 grams of fat, 6.6 grams of carbs. I'm about to drink some delicious American beer.
So when it says 4 ingredients, is it water, and water?
No, it is water, trans rights, and water.
All right, gotcha. How does it taste, Brian?
It's like somebody took a good beer and watered it down.
Fair enough. But
Hold
we
on a
support
second.
them.
I will not accept this.
What?
I will not accept this blasphemy. Why is Brian a commercial? This is not a commercial. This is me telling you what a great American beer Bud Light is and how it represents all the values that you stand behind. Bud Light.
That's a good finger point. Very nice.
Ron,
Yes.
what are you drinking?
I supported small business this week, Brian, as I often do. Last night, hanging out with friends of the podcast, the Jardys, at Bill's Best Brewery over in Glenside. I picked up a 4-pack of their Fortress of Solitude Indian Pale Ale in a frozen tundra far from civilization. This is packed with the Kryptonian bounty of Mosaic, Centennial, and Eldorado hops. This hazy IPA features notes of melon and tropical fruits. All friends and allies are welcome. So leave behind the bustle of Metropolis and discover the regenerating taste of Fortress of Solitude. What is the alcohol content on this bad boy? I didn't look that up. 6.7%. So it is hazy. I mean, take a look at that. That's got a good haze to it. Looks very
Oh,
citrusy.
I can't even look through it. I cannot see. Ooh.
Oh, that's good.
Ooh.
Oh,
Oh, can you taste the kryptonite? Taste the kryptonite.
I can. You know what's good about this? I'm not a fan
What?
of overly hopped IPAs. Very smooth hop flavor, getting the citrus undertones. This is a delicious beer.
A delicious beer. Well, it's a good thing because you're going to be drinking 3 more of those.
Yes, without a doubt. Bill's Best. Check them out next time you're in Glenside, PA. In the meantime, check out our Beef of the Week.
Ron and Brian's Beef of the Week.
Brian, what's bothering you this week?
The United States medical care system. I know that was my beef a week ago. I had another
It was.
incident earlier this week where I was offered a prescription for a medicine. I went for a follow-up for my cholesterol level, so I had more blood taken. While talking to the doctor, I was bringing them up to speed on these recent problems I'm having with my right knee. And there was a prescription that he said, listen, it's not mandatory, but it's something, if you want to take it, it may help. So I said, sure, call it into my local Duane Reade by Walgreens. Wouldn't it be great? I suddenly have the urge to just like do a commercial for every company and brand that I mentioned for the rest of the hour, just to think maybe Allie's going to just go crazy and think that I really am a walking commercial. So they called in the prescription, and I went to pick it up, and the pharmacist behind the counter literally looked at me and said, "This is $956."
Whoa!
And I said, "With my prescription? I mean, with my insurance?" And he looked at me and said, "Yes." I said, "How much would this cost without my insurance?" At which point he looked at me and said, $966.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, it was $10 more using your insurance.
No, it was $10 without it. It would have been $966 without the insurance, $956
Oh,
with
$956.
the
I
insurance.
thought you said $976.
So insurance was going to pay $10. I was going to pay $956. At which point I looked at them. We exchanged this awkward moment of silence.
Right.
At which point he said, it's a non-formulary. As if I understand that
Right.
kind of insider lingo, to which I just finally broke and said to him, "I'm sorry for wasting your time, but that's a pass." And I walked away.
You should check and see if it's available on that pharmacy website that Mark Cuban runs.
Is that markcuban.com?
It's like cost plus. It's like cost savings or something like that. But
I might check it out.
They sell it at. But that is ridiculous. Why do you have insurance if it's only going to cover $10?
Correct. It was outrageous.
That is. I mean, I will agree with your beef of the week. Sometimes it's a little first world problem. This is definitely a major issue.
Well, I mean, if it was something that I needed to keep me alive, I mean, that would be a complete different issue.
Sure.
This was just shocking and sad.
That's another good suggestion. Try GoodRx. Sometimes you find some coupons on there that will discount your. But it's ridiculous. You shouldn't have to go jump through hoops in order to.
Shouldn't have to
pay for a medicine.
Should not have to. Ron?
Yeah, my friend. What's up?
What's bothering you?
So my beef this week, Brian, is driving to New York, which I did this past Wednesday night as we attended AEW Dynamite at the UBS Arena in Elmont, New York, which we'll talk about later. And I rarely drive to New York. Rarely.
Mm-hmm.
I've driven to New York probably 3 times in the last, I'm going to say 20 years. And all 3 of those times were because of you, my friend. You should feel privileged.
I do.
But I figured, I'm like, I'm not really driving in New York City this time. I'm going to Queens, to stay in a hotel to go with you to Elmont. And I just figured, hey, why not? I'm leaving at like 1:30 in the afternoon. Shouldn't be a problem, except that damn Belt Parkway Took me over an hour to travel that last 15 miles to my hotel. Absolutely ridiculous.
That's unnecessary.
And then traffic was moving much faster the next morning when I left at like 5:30 a.m. But there are literally sections of the Belt Parkway that they've repaved and not bothered to put the lane lines back on there. But
why would they?
But I'm not sure why they have them in general, because people are just literally going side to side. People are going 80 or 20. There's no real in between there. It was like the Autobahn. It was ridiculous. I mean, it was great seeing you, William Esquire, Dom, but that drive, just brutal. Absolutely brutal.
Next time, would you take a train?
See, the issue with the train is you get into New York City, and then I still have to get out to Long Island. So it's like the amount of time that it takes me to go to Philly, hop on a train, go up to New York City, hop on the Long Island Railroad. Like at the end of the day, it's 6 of one, half dozen of another.
Have you thought about a megabus?
Possibly. I mean, it's only $1. The only good thing about staying in my hotel was I did get a chance to meet in person former WWE superstar, badass Billy Gunn outside my my hotel. Went over, asked him for a selfie. That's a picture of it right there. Yes, Brian, you look like you have a question.
My question was this, and this one I was somewhat perplexed by, because Dom and I dropped you off outside of your hotel.
Right.
And we watched you walk in and go to the elevator.
Correct.
When did this photo happen?
All right. So I went back up to my room. And if you remember, I told you how when I got to the hotel, there was no parking available and I had to park on the street.
No valet. Yes, you had to park on the street.
We were all completely convinced that my car was going to be stolen overnight.
Sure.
I remembered the guy had said, when you come back, see if there's any spots available. I was like, oh, yeah. So I went back down on the elevator to go out to talk to the valet to see if there were any spots available. I walk out. I see that there's an available spot. So I'm like, awesome. But then I see like a guy hop out of an SUV, move like the valet cone aside, and the other guy park his SUV and drop the cone back. And I'm like, what are these sons of bitches doing? And they hop out, and one of them was Billy Gunn. And I was, I was a little inebriated. I was like, hey, you gotta take a selfie. I'm a big fan. And
you were not that inebriated. You did not. You were not slurring your words when we were at the state. Don't pretend that you were.
But that is the smile of a man who has worked a long day and really just wants to check in and go to his hotel room.
Are you talking about yourself or are you talking about Billy Gunn?
Talking about Billy Gunn. I had already checked in. I was ready to just go right back up in the elevator.
Question: what had he done? Because we watched all the matches and I never saw him once.
We were doing a beer run when he came out, I believe, during the Acclaimed segment. He is also he's a coach for AEW as well.
What is a coach? What does a coach do in wrestling?
I guess he coaches the wrestlers on how to do.
Is that like Jerry Sandusky coaching, or is that like
not quite like that? Oh man, it would have been hilarious if Billy Gunn was trying to steal my car, Billy.
Well, I'm sure it was an upgrade.
He was driving. No, he had a pretty nice car. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh really?
Yeah, I ended up riding the elevator with him and QT Marshall.
Who's QT Marshall?
He is another wrestler. Not as famous. They were both, however, jealous that I was on the top floor and they were not. We started comparing Marriott Bonvoy statuses.
Did you let them know that you are the 49% owner of the Ron and Brian podcast?
I didn't want to brag. I didn't want to seem braggadocious. All right, Brian.
If you really want to brag, Ron.
You show off.
You really want to brag. I'm just going to say this to you. Are we going to talk AEW? I think we're already there.
I think maybe later on. I kind of wanted to get to some of the news first. Listen, you can keep the belt handy on your shoulder. I would often do that during these shows. But Brian, I wanted to. I mean, I need to talk about what transpired in Tennessee this past week.
Tennessee. Okay, so what transpired in Tennessee was this. Jethro was making meth in his in Granddaddy's trailer. Didn't have the right amount of Sudafed that Mary Lou had stolen from the local Dwayne Reed by Walgreens.
Brian, I think that's not exactly the Tennessee story. Brian, are you familiar with what happened in the Tennessee House of Representatives this past week?
Yeah, so apparently Tennessee passed a law this week that school officials are legally allowed to look at the genitals of children.
That was
who are-
Kansas, actually.
Oh, Tennessee was the state where they announced that free lunch for poor children was going to be.
No, that was North Dakota.
Tennessee was the state that announced that abortions after 6 weeks were going to be banned.
I believe that was Missouri, actually.
Ron, I don't know what happened to Tennessee. I
Right.
can't tell you what happened in Tennessee.
Well, Brian, I think you are aware that about a week or so ago, a shooter killed 3 students and 3 adults at a private Christian elementary school in Nashville. And so 10,000 kids marched to the House of Representatives last week, demanding that lawmakers do something to make them safer in their schools. They properly entered the House chamber in the viewing area and started to protest and chant, at which time 3 Democratic House lawmakers who had not been allowed to speak, they say, on gun control for the week, joined in the chants. This was Representatives Justin Jones, Justin Pearson, and Gloria Johnson. I believe, Matt, if you could, I believe we have a photo of the 3 of them. So there are the 3 right there. Gloria Johnson on the left, Justin Jones in the middle, Justin Pearson on the right. And so because of this, Brian, because they were passionately protesting for some way to help these children, how do you feel the GOP responded, Brian?
Okay. I would say that the GOP heard the loud voices of the protesters, just basically asking for some simple steps to be taken to increase their safety. And I'm going to say that the GOP members of the Tennessee state legislature had a change of heart and decided that if they truly were the party of law and order, that they were going to take steps to improve the safety of the children in schools, police officers responding to domestic calls, and they voted to ban assault rifles.
All right. Well, that didn't exactly quite happen, Brian.
No?
There were 3 resolutions filed on Monday by Representatives Bud Hulsey, Gino Bulso, and Andrew Farmer. 3 resolutions filing seeking the expulsion of Jones, Pearson, and Johnson. Not censure, not referring to an ethics committee, immediate expulsion from the Tennessee House of Representatives, of which a vote was held in the House on Thursday, I believe. So, Brian, you see the 3 members that were up for expulsion. 2 of them were expelled. 1 survived by a single vote. Would you like to guess, Brian, out of the 3, who survived the expulsion vote?
Willie Tyler on the right.
No, it was actually Gloria Johnson, the 60-year-old white woman. She survived, while Representatives Jones and Pearson were expelled from the House body.
Excuse me, Tennessee legislature. That's very problematic.
And everyone's pretty much said this is extremely problematic. What is also problematic is what a lot of people are saying is the speed in which the expulsion took place. So some stats for Tennessee, Brian, where the GOP has controlled the House and the Senate since 2010 and the governor's mansion since 2011. Since that time, Brian, there have been 148 shooting incidents at Tennessee schools during that period. Tennessee ranks 10th in the country in school shootings with at least 1 death or injury since 1970. Tennessee also ranks 33rd in the country in education and consistently ranks amongst the least educated states in the country, despite education levels being on the rise nationwide. So the GOP has had 13 years to address school safety and gun control and mental health issues and have not gotten anything done, but yet managed to get their act together to kick 2 of these individuals out within a week.
Listen, this is, Janelle's got a point right here that Tennessee is trying to outdo Florida. And I think what you are looking at here is a complete lack of restraint by conservative politicians to push an agenda through that is basically pandering to the base. It is an utter lack of legislating. It's a I don't even understand how to put in words that we have representatives. We have a representative government. We call it a democracy, but at the end of the day, it really is a representative government. The population votes for representatives at multiple levels of local, state, federal government to represent their beliefs and their wants when it comes to legislation and regulations within this country. And you now have an unabashed set of legislatures who are, for lack of a better phrase, disregarding a majority of Americans in terms of what they are looking for in terms of laws.
Now, what's interesting is I'm not even sure at this point. I think even the base, on a national level, GOP figures were, I think, hoping that this did not go through because it is an amazingly bad look. And at the end of the day, it really does not solve what they were trying to do, which is to kick these representatives out. Because what is going to happen now is since these 2 representatives, Jones and Pearson, have been kicked out, their city councils now get to appoint a replacement. And it appears that all that will happen is that Representatives Jones and Pearson will be reappointed to their existing seats until a special election can be held, which they obviously have a great opportunity to win again because they won those seats in the first place. What this also allows them to do, which they normally would not be able to do at this point in their service, is to start fundraising again. Because in Tennessee law, if you were sitting in the House of Representatives for a 6-year seat or a 6-year term of service, you can only fundraise starting, I think it's a year and a half prior to Election Day. Well, now that they have technically been kicked out of the House, even if they are appointed as by these councils to be put back in, they don't have to follow those rules. So they are now at this time, the 2 of them, raising incredible amounts of money from across the country because they've been given a national platform. These 2 guys have given some of the greatest speeches that I've seen any young politician give lately. I would recommend, if you have not watched, yes.
Can we, the Ron and Brian podcast, or the entity properly known as RNB LLC, can we donate to their political campaigns?
Of course we can. You just you let Matt know the dollar amount. I'm sure he can take care of it.
I think we should donate to each of their campaigns.
All right, consider it done. Now, also, I wanted to play a bit of video. So
I thought you wanted to role play a bit. I was like, save that for After Dark, my friend. Spicy material goes into After Dark.
So Representative Justin Jones was on MSNBC last night. They were interviewing him about his expulsion. They also had on Michael Steele, former head of the RNC.
Sure.
Who basically, well, you'll listen to the video, supports these 2 young men, and in his own words, disgusted by his own party because of this.
Tonight, I am horrified and ashamed, as with yet another episode. So let me just start by saying to Representative Jones, you stand for something bigger than what happened today on so many levels. You represent a future that America has been leaning towards for a long time. Your generation will change this country. Your generation will mark this moment, and every last one of those bastards who voted you out will rue that moment. Whether it's in Tennessee, whether it's anywhere else in the country, your generation has an opportunity to seed something different. What we're witnessing now should not stand. It cannot be allowed to stand, because it not only makes a mockery of your service, makes a mockery of your leadership for your constituents, it makes a mockery of the very Constitution that you swore to uphold as a representative. So you continue to do you. Today, folks, what we saw was Tennessee telling 2 young African-American men to not get so uppity. Right? We can't have you doing anything more than we want you to do. So you need to sit down and be quiet. And when they didn't, they tried to silence them. So this idea of the uppity black man, the uppity black woman, is still a prevalent feature of racism in this country. And today you saw it on full tilt. You saw it on full tilt because, as you just discussed, Stephanie, there was no difference amongst the 3 representatives in the position they took, the actions that they did, they committed, the things they said on that House floor. And the only difference was these 2 young men are black, and the white female, the woman was white. And they made that very clear. So you continue to lead, my friend. Do your thing. You've got a country that watched this real time. We watched it real time. We tweeted about it. We talked about it. We experienced it real time. And that, I believe, has left an indelible mark on this moment for a lot of Americans. So Friday is going to come. Monday is going to come. Weeks will follow. But the momentum and the energy is with you. Just keep pushing ahead, because you need to change this country.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
I actually don't believe you could have said it better.
There's been so many downward spirals we've seen in this country in the last 7 years. I think what has happened in Tennessee is a new low. But I also think it shows that, I don't know whether the GOP didn't learn anything from this past election day, or if there's just a level of arrogance in some states where they still feel they can get away with anything. I mean, Tennessee has really only been a red state since 2010, 2011, not in the grand scheme of things, not that long a time. And you now have a youth in the state of Tennessee, much like across the country, which is very energized, and they want their voices to be heard. And when they see these young representatives that they can relate to being treated by old white men in positions of power, I think election day in Tennessee in 24, 26, and 28 going to be very interesting. But it is a disgusting abuse of power, normally coming from, I'm trying to think what's the word I'm trying to use. Well, anyway, so another thing I wanted to share with you, again, to show what a fucking clown car the state of Tennessee is. Obviously there was a bunch of Tennessee lawmakers that were on various channels. There was one that went on CNN, state representative Jeremy Faison. I think we have a picture of him here.
He's good.
A Republican. They asked him, I think it was Van Jones asked him why they did not refer this to an ethics committee, why they didn't look into censoring, which is usually what's happened. And there was a number of cases they pointed out of other representatives, to claim one urinating on another person's seat in the House chambers.
Been there, done that.
Various criminal activities, and they've just been censored. And Jeremy Faison was like, I didn't feel like referring it to an ethics committee. So, Brian, you may be saying to yourself, Ron, I feel like I know the name Jeremy Faison. You're asking yourself that, aren't you?
Ron, I feel I know the name Jeremy Faison, but I can't really place where. Is there anything you can point to where I would know the name Jeremy Faison, which actually was, interesting enough, my DJ name back at WCDB Albany.
Well, let's jump back in time, Brian, to a story that we covered back in January of 2022 about a Tennessee politician who made headlines because he tried to de-pants a referee at his son's high school basketball game.
What?
And it was the very same Representative Jerry Faison attending his son's high school basketball game, got upset over a call, literally attempted to yank down the pants of the referee at that game.
What was her name, the referee?
It was a guy.
You know?
Don't worry.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's certainly not very.
The same
Republican of
man
him.
condemning the behavior of Representatives Jones, Pearson, and Johnson has proven that he cannot have good behavior himself.
Listen, yeah, I think it is very well established, and I know that right now I'm going to make a statement, and you are going to probably be able to pull up 4 articles right now, but it is very clear that the South has just unabashedly embraced gun rights and gun ownership. Almost irrationally, where it is. I think the story you're about to pull up is coming down to Texas, where Governor Abbott announced. I believe it was it yesterday or today?
I believe it was yesterday. Yes, it was yesterday that this story came out.
So apparently, there is a former U.S. sergeant by the name of Daniel Perry, who in July 25th of 2020, keep in mind, people, this was just a short period of time after George Floyd's murder by Minneapolis police. There were protests through the streets all over American cities. I believe this took place in Austin.
It did, yes.
So there was a protest taking place in Austin. Sergeant Harvey Perry, was that
Sergeant Daniel Perry?
Sergeant Daniel Perry had actually gone online to say that he was going to be packing up his guns. He was going to be driving down to Austin, and he said this was a perfect opportunity to shoot some people and get away with it. What did he do? He got in his car. He drove down to Austin, where he shot a man to death.
Yes, he did. He shot Garrett Foster to death with his handgun, claiming that he fired at Foster only after the protester pointed an AK-47 into his car.
Now, what was the victim doing, allegedly? Excuse me. What was he doing prior to allegedly being accused of aiming a gun at a car?
Well, first, witnesses have testified that Foster never raised the weapon and had only been pushing his black quadruple amputee fiance's wheelchair when he was killed.
Now, I'm not saying everybody on this planet is an angel, but if you're a guy in Texas and you are pushing your quadruple amputee fiance at a Black Lives Matter rally, I'm going to say that you have my support, and anything that happens to you, I will believe your side. Unfortunately, he's not alive to give his side of the version, as he was shot dead. So a jury recently found him guilty.
He did. He was found guilty. He is facing sentencing. On this, I don't know what I think it's 25 years to life.
Texas is all about law and order, correct? Texas is all about law and order. You know, we have laws on the books. We're going to support those books. So here we have a murder.
Right.
We have a murder, maybe manslaughter, depending on how you want to spin the law. And what side is Texas Governor Abbott coming down on? Law and order, correct?
Well, the law and order, which is a problem because apparently the district attorney who prosecuted the case is a Democrat. District Attorney Jose Garza, also apparently backed by George Soros.
Everybody, listen. Somehow, you and I are the only two liberals not backed by George Soros. Apparently,
George, why aren't you sponsoring this podcast?
Somehow, Soros is. You and I are the only two people not being written checks by George. Listen, if George Soros was supporting this podcast, the graphics would be way better.
So
I would have a home. I'd be in a home studio.
So in a Twitter, Governor Abbott has promised to rein in, quote, rogue district attorneys, and in a Twitter comment said that he strongly supports a supporting theory that Garza intentionally misled the grand jury throughout the trial. So Soros backs it. Garza misleads the jury, a jury of the same constituents that probably helped elect Governor Abbott.
Sure.
Their version, their decision can't be trusted.
No, you can't trust it.
So again, another tremendous overreach from the party of small government,
and from the party of law and order. Don't forget, it's they want to make it okay for you to just basically go around shooting people.
I've never, regardless of what the protest is for, whether I'm for that, whether I'm against it, I have never really felt the need to load up a lot of weapons and go to a protest. And I don't know why this happens so much.
You know what happens when people are, protesting something that I don't care about?
You ignore it.
I stay home.
Right.
I just stay home. I don't give a shit. I don't grab my weapons and start driving around town. I just stay home. I stay home. I watch TV. I put Netflix on, maybe a Hulu, a Disney Plus, an AMC Plus, HBO Max, Peacock.
I was waiting to see how many more you could come up with.
YouTube.
This time's gotta stop.
All right. Well, let's run through. We don't want it to seem like we're just picking on the GOP this week. But
Ron, can we pick a little? Can we pick a little bit more on them?
So goddamn easy. So
I feel like you got more.
Let's jump out to North Dakota, where last week they voted against expanding the free lunch program in North Dakota, which would have helped cover meals for students whose families are between 130 and 200% of the poverty level. So for a family of four, that means those making less than $60,000 a year. They voted against that last week. This week, they voted.
So clearly, they believe in small government. They believe in lowering government spending. They are the party of monetary restraint.
Right. This school lunch bill would have cost the state $6 million every 2 years. They said we can't support this. This week, however, during interim legislation meetings, they passed a bill that will increase in-state meal reimbursements for state employees, including themselves.
Right.
So again, can't feed the kids. Fuck them poor kids.
Fuck them kids.
They want to be able to, maybe add the queso to their burrito when they're having lunch. Maybe get the guacamole versus the hamburger.
Ooh.
So that's North Dakota. I feel like we have more here. Oh yeah, Missouri Republicans are now one step closer to defunding public libraries. They voted to defund all of the state public libraries for some reason, because I'm not even sure why. I am not even sure why, because this actually started with Senate Bill 775. It was legislation that was intended to provide more rights to sexual assault survivors, which he then included an amendment to cut funding to public libraries. So now it's a choice of do you provide more rights to sexual assault survivors, but then defund public libraries?
Hard to say.
Right.
It's just it's mind-boggling. It's genuinely mind-boggling how shamelessly politicians on the right, and I'm sure the left is not perfect. No. I do not want to come across like we are bleeding heart liberals who believe that the Democrats are the key to salvation for America. But it is stunning how there's a complete lack of shame by Republican politicians to absolutely refuse to accommodate anybody that is not part of their camp. You know, if you're a poor child, you don't get the support of the Republicans. If you go buy a yacht, yes, they're going to give you a tax break on that.
I need to make a quick correction. I read this article a tad bit incorrectly. So what happened is there was this bill to provide more rights to sexual assault survivors. A Republican state senator added an amendment to ban educators from providing sexually explicit material to students. That was the amendment on the bill. The bill passed, and because of this bill passing, that started a lot of conservative parents trying to target books with LGBTQ themes to get them out of the libraries. So the ACLU decides to file a lawsuit against the state, arguing that the ban violates the First Amendment. The Missouri Association of School Librarians and the Missouri Library Association joined that lawsuit with the ACLU. So now the act of trying to defund public libraries is in retaliation for those associations joining the lawsuit against the state. It's even worse than I thought before.
Yep. It's just mind-boggling. Mind-boggling.
I think that might be it. Oh, but wait. Let's go to Kansas, Brian. Let's go to Kansas, where the Kansas state legislature passed a ban on transgender students participating in female categories in school and college sports. They actually overrode a veto by the state's Democratic governor. It's called the Fairness in Women's Sports Act. And basically,
what are they calling it?
It's the Fairness in Women's Sports Act.
Oh, so fairness in women's sports. I think that's something we can all get behind.
You would think so. But how, Brian, how are they going to enforce this?
I'm going to say that they are going to increase funding to women's sports throughout school districts throughout the state.
No, actually what it will involve is a physical examination of these school kids, which could also include a genital inspection. So in essence, it makes me feel like the Kansas GOP wants to look at kids' genitals. Yes, agree with Allie. Get out of children's pants. Like, I get that, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, how the subject of transgender athletes, especially when it comes to women's sports, is a challenging one. And there are still a lot of, I think, questions and decisions that need to be made. I don't see how looking at prepubescent children's genitals gets us there.
I don't have an answer. It literally is just, it almost, I know this is going to sound this will sound minor. This will sound not severe enough, but it is.
Minor? Was that a underage joke there?
No, it was not an underage joke.
Right.
They're out of control.
Right.
They're genuinely, there is an absolute rush by Republican politicians to I don't even know what the word is anymore. I don't know how to phrase it. It is just, it's so illogical, the anger that they are displaying towards people that are not like them. And to me, you're representing America, which has always been a country of immigrants, a country of diversity, a country of different types of people.
Well, it always was a case of with politicians, the line was, they represent everybody, even if everybody doesn't vote for them. And that has gone so far by the wayside.
Yes.
It's just not even on people's radar anymore.
Sad. It's very sad. Ron,
Yes.
what are you watching?
I mean, what did I watch this week? I did not watch a lot. I started watching it's not a new show, but it's new to me. It's called From on Amazon Prime. There's actually 2 seasons already on online with a third season starting on April 23rd. It's kind of a supernatural TV show. It's from the producers of Lost. It's about this town that people get trapped in and can't leave, and there are these creatures that come out after dark that will basically gut you and eat you if you're not indoors. So it's good. I'm like 5 or 6 episodes in. But
So it's kind of like Chicago.
Yeah, basically very similar. Brian, what are you watching?
Ooh, this week I watched 2 things that I recommend on YouTube. I watched Dog Belly, the new stand-up hour from comedian Big J. Okerson.
Oh, he's good.
Very good, very solid. He has not put out a special in probably 6-7 years. One of the best crowd work comedians out there. His interplay with people in the crowd is almost as good as Todd Barry's.
Nice.
Todd Barry, I'll still say, is the best. But this one is not just all crowd work. There are stories, jokes, whatnot, called Dog Belly right there on YouTube. You don't even need to pay for a streaming service. You got it right there, Dog Belly. Also watched on Amazon Prime, Reggie, documentary on Reggie Jackson. Really fascinating. I watched it with somebody who I care very much about, who isn't really a huge baseball fan. And despite that deficiency on her part, she also it captured her interest for the full hour and a half.
Nice.
So we watched Reggie. Really, it tells the story of what, it's starting with his entry into the baseball minor leagues. What was it like being an African-American male in the mid 1960s in Alabama on a minor league team where telling stories of how his teammates used to where his teammates would run in to buy meals while he waited in the car for them to bring him back his meal because he wasn't allowed in the restaurant. Stories where he would sleep on the couch of various players because the town they were living in, they wouldn't rent to an African American, even a room and board kind of establishment. All the way through, what was it like breaking through the majors in a time before free agency, when an owner could literally offer you a contract and you had no other recourse. You could not go to the court. You could not become a free agent. You couldn't wait for your contract to expire and go to another team. If your contract expired and you didn't want to play with that team anymore, you were out of baseball. You got to go home and sell insurance. Really fascinating. And then obviously it goes through his success in Oakland, his success with the New York Yankees, and then his frustrations with Major League Baseball. It's a lack of diversity in his post-playing career. Really interesting, and I recommend it to any baseball fan or a fan of watching somebody overcome some struggles and truly succeed. Though it is, if you do watch it, very bittersweet in the end.
All right. Do you know where Reggie Jackson's childhood home is, Brian?
No.
Right here in Elkins Park, PA.
What the fuck? And you've never taken me there?
We'll have to find it next time. They're considering knocking it down. They're trying to get it made a historical. Maybe it's Jenkintown. No, I think it's Elkins Park. We'll find it the next time you're down. Brian, we before we get too late into the show, we have to get to our stories of the week. This is where we pick out.
It's in Winecoat, Winecoat,
right around the corner.
149 Greenwood Avenue, Winecoat, PA.
So, Brian, what was?
I'm sorry, Ron. I'll just keep talking all over the place because. What?
So how is that different from normal? So we're going to do our stories of the week, Brian. Brian, what was the story you wanted to cover this week?
Ron, do you have a photo of Marla McIntyre?
I might. Is that her?
Oh my gosh. What a beautiful photo. There is nothing more beautiful to me than watching a picture of a new mom with her baby, showing the love that a mother, and I mean, especially when that baby was born in a toilet.
How does that happen, Brian? I need to know.
All right.
How does your baby get born in a toilet?
A Georgia woman who mistook labor pains for a bad bellyache over the course of months, who did not seek medical attention, thank the American healthcare system, where people are too afraid to go to doctors because they can't afford it. She went to the bathroom and popped out a bouncing baby boy. Quote,
Oof.
I look down in the toilet and he is in there with water up to his ears, right under his chin, just looking back up at me like, are you going to get me out of here, Mom? She is 5 feet tall, 160 pounds normally, a little body shaming on the New York Post part. We don't need to know what her body measurements are. She never had a noticeable baby bump in the 9 months leading up to her child's February birth. She said, I just looked like maybe I ate a big burrito. If you saw my size and the way I didn't show, it's astonishing how he could be in there and me not know it.
Don't babies like kick and move around? Like, I get maybe she felt but I feel like there are other, like, you don't have a period for 9 months. Like
She did say that she stopped getting her period, but she took a clear blue pregnancy test that came back negative and then just went on about her life. She said she never felt any kicks. She never felt anything. And then lo and behold, little baby boy McIntyre was just dumped out into her toilet.
That's I picked the wrong picture. That's a noggin on that child. Good Lord.
That is, very hairy. That's just a massive amount of hair on his head.
I mean, they say all babies are beautiful, but this kid might be the exception of it.
Well, I wouldn't say the one. I mean, Janelle's calling shenanigans.
I mean, wait, that would mean this woman's just making up a story to get to go viral.
Whoa, no. Do you think there's a possible GoFundMe in her future?
We'll have to see. We'll have to keep an eye on that.
Though I think our podcast should start following her on social media so we can get constant updates on on baby toilet boy McIntyre.
All right. Would you like to hear my story of the week, Brian?
Ron, what's your story of the week?
So my story of the week involves actress and presenter Anna Obregon. Right here, she is a 68-year-old celebrity who reportedly used a surrogate mother in Miami to have a baby. But apparently there was a twist this past week when she announced that the baby is actually the daughter of her son, who died of cancer in 2020. So,
okay, hold up. So she is going to be raising her grandchild.
Well, what I'm trying to find out is, and it's tough to say, the implication is that her son started to preserve samples of sperm before he began treatment for his cancer treatment. Mm-hmm. So what is not clear is whether this woman's eggs were fertilized by her son's sperm.
Now, Ron, I'm going to ask you a question. First off, I'm going to hope that the answer to that question is no.
Right.
What would you prefer? Maybe this is an after dark question, but I'm saying it during the podcast. There are no rules. There actually are. But what do you think would have been a better use for her son's sperm? Do you think that it would have been to fertilize the eggs that her surrogate carried as embryos into full birth so she can raise that child? Or do you think she should have dried the sperm into a powder and then made a faux pearl jewelry out of? What is the better use of sperm? I'm going with that
second one, actually.
You think a pair of earrings?
Yes.
Earrings would have been better.
I mean, I think it would have been tasteful. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like there's a nice piece of jewelry. Maybe he could have studded his urn with that. Like
I don't know. I'm sorry, but I don't know a lot of people that want a taste full of sperm.
So those are our stories of the week. It was quite a week. Also, Brian, you a couple of weeks back introduced our new segment, Fuck Around and Find Out, and people loved it. And we had a couple new stories this week falling under the Fuck Around and Find Out. The first one coming from Sterling, Virginia. It involves YouTuber Tanner Cook. He was reportedly recording a prank video for his YouTube page inside the Dulles Town Center when 31-year-old Alan Coley allegedly shot him in the stomach. I mean, kind of funny. Officials have arrested and charged Coley with aggravated malicious wounding, use of a firearm, and commission of a felony, and discharging a firearm within a building. Apparently, the shooting was a result of a fight that broke out in the food court between two men. Apparently, because Tanner Cook was playing this practical joke, the guy did not take it well, pulled out a gun and shot him. Now, I'm torn on this one. I'm very torn on this one. Like, you should not just randomly shoot people in the food court of the mall.
No, you should only shoot people if your life is in line. But
these prank channels on YouTube, just they go too far sometimes. And I mean, I'm not saying the kid deserved it. I'm just saying he fucked around and he found out.
Yes. I think that I've watched videos where these pranksters are doing something that they think is funny and it's just blatantly disrespectful. And one of the things I always like to do, it is Easter. I like to think, I like to quote my Bible, do unto others as you would like done to you.
Right.
And, if you apply that rule to a lot of these YouTube pranks that you're seeing on social media, a lot of times I come back and say, I would not want that done to me. Now, there was one YouTube prank that I was watching recently where a man went into a sauna at his local gym, and another man walked over and took his blanket off, his towel, exposing himself. You were supposed to stop me, Ron.
Oh, sorry.
That was one of as soon as I said man sauna, that was your cue for this thing's got to
Well, Brian,
stop.
let me cut you off right there. You also added a story to Fuck Around and Find Out. Talk to us about this story, because this was also enjoyable. Matt, unfortunately, did not pull the video, but I think it's a good story nonetheless.
Well, the whole point of this story for Fuck Around and Find Out is to watch the video, because on a recent flight from someplace to someplace, the article doesn't even have the guy's name, a gentleman flying in first class demanded a pre-flight gin and tonic from the steward or stewardess. We don't assume gender. And was refused as the drink service had not started.
Right. He apparently wanted a gin and tonic.
Sure. What's wrong with the gin and tonic?
Nothing.
Who likes gin and tonics? Snoop Dogg. If Snoop Dogg drinks it, Manizzle. If Snoop Dogg's drinking it, then we all want it, right? A little gin. My head is going to explode from hearing Brian talk about people doing things they think are funny and are just disrespectful. Is that to imply that I do the same?
I think she's referring to your comments about the prank YouTube channel.
No, I think she's trying to say that I'm guilty of it. Anyway, so throws a fit, crosses the line, seems shocked when airport security comes onto the plane to take him off, and immediately starts weeping as they are placing him under arrest.
Yeah, I mean, begging now not to get kicked off the plane, but
sure,
that flight was over for that individual. He fucked around and he found out.
Ended up crying.
Yep. Brian,
Ron, when was the last time you cried?
Probably when I lost the title belt. Just some full-on weeping.
I believe that.
Real quick, because we don't want the show to end before we talk about this, let's give a quick wrap-up of our AEW night this past Wednesday at the UBS Arena, Elmont, New York. People asked, did Brian bring the title belt with him? He did. He brought it to work. He brought it on the train. He carried it with him into the UBS Arena. And many people admired the belt. It was insane.
First off, the way I saw it is you had reached out to me and said, listen, if you don't want to bring the belt, you don't have to.
Yeah.
At no point did I take you seriously.
All right.
I figured that if I didn't show up to that arena with the belt, you would lambaste me and shame me in a way that I did not want to be on the receiving end of.
Fair enough.
So I brought the belt in. One story that I would like to share is that I did not have a proper transportation mode for the belt at work. I put it in a paper bag with handles from Walgreens. In the office, it seemed like it was sturdy enough to hold the belt.
Right.
However, 2 minutes into my Long Island Railroad, as it is exiting Penn Station, going under the East River into Queens, coming out in Long Island City, sometime during that portion of the commute, the handles of the bag ripped off, causing the lower part of the bag containing the belt to crash to the floor in a loud thud.
Yikes.
Well, if you are a Long Island resident, hearing you might be a little skittish on the Long Island Railroad if you hear a loud noise. The amount of eyes that were immediately shot over into my direction as I awkwardly picked up my paper bag off the floor and clutched it under my arm, trying to avoid any further embarrassment. But that embarrassment completely went away as I walked into the UBS arena in the Elmont Hall or Belmont Hall, whatever they want to call it. I suddenly realized that I was the only idiot there with a wrestling belt. I quickly looked around when I walked. I walked in relatively early. I think it was close to it was about 5:30. The show didn't start until 7. But I did a quick, 360 to see, who else is going to make me feel a little bit more normal right now. And there was nobody. There was nobody with a wrestling belt over their shoulder. And I'm going to tell you something. I held it. I wore it at times.
You were proud
tossed
of
it over. It was also nice to see you getting to see it again. You've been away from her for, a couple months.
Couple months now. Yeah.
I know she was so important to you.
Difficult.
I know that she was the rock that held you up when you were feeling low. But it was something that I would prefer not to have to do again.
Right. Well, it was a good time. I mean, it was, William Esquire was there with us.
Sure.
Dom was there with us.
Friend of the show.
We had good seats. We were in the Dime Lounge, so we had, our own bar, our own bathroom available.
Sure.
I enjoyed.
Also, people, UBS Arena. If you use your American Express card, was it 10% off?
I believe so.
10% off for using your American Express card. And what I was very surprised by, Ron, was when he looked at me and said, I don't have an American Express card.
I don't. I just haven't gotten around to getting one again. So I enjoyed you explaining your title belt to the bartender at one point, because she was like, I don't recognize that title belt. And you were very proudly explained that you were the 51% owner of the Ron and Brian podcast, which led to a very obvious follow-up question from her. Well, if you're the 51% owner, where's the 49% owner? And you were kind of like, oh, this asshole back here. It was enjoyable. It was fun.
It was a very fun time. But I will say this, it's just too long of a day.
Yeah, it
is too long of a day.
You've got AEW Dark.
What do you have, Ron?
You got AEW Dark from 7 to 8. Then you had Dynamite from 8 to 10. Then Ring of Honor. My issue, you want to know what my real issue of the evening was?
You need to drink some water, my friend.
Hold on.
Just take a second. It's okay to hydrate. There's nothing wrong with hydrating. You should be using your Ron and Brian mug.
We should get some glasses made up, like some pint glasses with the Ron and Brian. Anyway, I digress. My only issue of the evening, I think, was kind of with Dom. And you want to know why that is, Brian? That son of a bitch he keeps getting better looking as he gets older.
Yes.
Like, I haven't seen him since, I think, the Life of Agony concert at Broken Goblet. And he's
Sure.
he's got the salt and pepper thing going. He's got the gray on each side. And it's just like, he's intimidatingly good looking to sit next to. And like, I've had a comfort level with my looks. I would say I'm a solid Pennsylvania 6. I'm probably like a New York 4. Like,
that's not true. That's not true.
New York's a higher level. Like, Dom is like a New York 8. He's a Philly 10. You put him out in like central Pennsylvania, and he's lifted to like God status. Like, you move him like outskirts of Reading into a small town, and like within 2 weeks, all the men of the town are like, Dom, please stop taking our wives from us.
Yes. And
100%.
And also, he has the personality where he will instantly connect with a total stranger.
Great guy. Just a
total,
friendly, great guy.
Just sitting next to somebody, he will turn around and start talking to them.
Yeah.
Yet he also looks like, and I can attest to this, he looks like the kind of guy that in half a second, things can turn sour and he could be beating the crap out of someone.
Yeah, he could lay out with one punch if he needed to. But he wouldn't do that because he wasn't a guy.
No, but he's the kind of guy you want on your side
without
when
a doubt.
When the fight breaks out. Great guy. Absolutely. You know what would have been nice had you sat there and said after he dropped you off, hey, wait a second, wait a couple minutes. I'm going to get us photos with Billy Gunn.
Hold on. I'm certain badass Billy Gunn is going to be here in a couple of minutes.
Sure.
I want you guys just hang out.
Sure. Instead, what we got was, okay, good night, guys.
Okay. Anything? I mean, we've covered so much, Brian. I don't know. The only thing we haven't covered is what's going down in a mere 24 minutes. And that is, of course, After Dark. For our Patreon subscribers, if you go to ronandbrianpodcast.com, click in the upper right-hand corner to become a patron. For just $10 a month or more, you get access to the live After Dark taking place from 9:30 to 10 this evening. You also can qualify for great levels of swag. Brian will be cracking open his second tall boy of Bud Light.
Already knocked down one. What is this, 24 ounces?
It's going to be a solid night. Just a solid night. I got a bit of a buzz going. I know I'm ready for After Dark. Brian, are you ready for After Dark?
I'm ready for After Dark. I think we've got some spicy stories. We've got some sexiness. It's going to be naughty.
All right. Well, then thank you, everybody, for joining us. I feel this has been an outstanding 68 minutes of content. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. Hopefully you've enjoyed it enough to join the Patreon and join us later. But if not, we always enjoy you guys joining, subscribing, rating, reviewing, the whole 9 yards. Patreon folks, we'll see you in a little bit. Everyone else, we'll be back here next Sunday night. Brian, any final words of wisdom before we get on out of here, champ? He's just
none. Thank you. Just waving the belt for those people still listening on audio MP3 format, old school OG. People, listen, it is there's a lot of ugliness in this world. Do not let it pull you down. Understand that there's a lot of things that you can do yourself to make the world a better place. There's a lot of things you can do to make your world a better place. And you owe it to yourself to do everything and anything that you can.
All right. Can't say it better myself. Episode 252 in the books. Ron and Brian out.
Thank you for joining us on the Ron and Brian podcast. We're live each week on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. You can find prior episodes, links to our social media, and everything else Ron and Brian at ronandbrianpodcast.com.